Hi, I'm Cheng Thom, and you're watching Ask Kai, Quickies, a series of short videos in which I teach you everything you have ever wanted to know about sex, dating, and relationships. Get ready. So, lovely viewers, today's question comes from someone who says, I am a black cisgender woman, and I've recently realized that I'm attracted to non-binary trans femmes of color. Is it fair to start dating people when I haven't figured out how I identify yet? You know, I love this question. In general, the genre of question I tend to get for the Ask Kai Quickies videos are like, how do I be a human and also not hurtful in the world? How can I date who I want to date and do what I want to do and not be an asshole? And this question for me falls into that category of deeply lovely query where it's like, how do I pursue my own desire while also holding on to the humanity and dignity of the people I desire? And I just wish that everyone was asking themselves that all the time. I really wish that every person, every man, every woman, every non-binary person, every person of every gender really was asking themselves that, particularly the people that I talk to on Grindr. But that is a story for another time. Let's return our attention to our question asker and not to me, whatever, who is like saying she's attracted to non-binary trans femmes of color. And so I really love the specificity here. I'm going to go ahead and throw out that I love non-binary trans femmes of color. I really feel like there are a lot of folks who identify or present that way who are leading the charge when it comes to expanding our notions of aesthetics, of sexual attraction, of what it means to be out in the world and receiving attention, wanted or unwanted, for other people. Alok Vaid Menon comes to mind as someone who is non-binary, trans feminine, a person of color, and really pushing the boundaries when it comes to fashion, gender expression, and speaking truth to power around being a non-binary trans feminine person. So a lot of love for non-binary trans femmes out in the world and everything that they are doing, everything seen and unseen that they are. So the question is it fair to start dating non-binary trans femmes of color as a cis woman without really being fully clear on how one identifies? And I'm just going to go ahead and say, yes, I think so. Sure, go ahead, go forth, with some caveats, of course. So, what are the caveats? Well, I think there can be this pressure in contemporary queer culture to have a solid identity. And it's from this identity as a base that we then sort of give ourselves permission, or are given permission by the community, whatever that means, to go out and be dating other people. But you know, to me, the idea of rigid identity categories is in itself sometimes a little bit restrictive or potentially even oppressive. People's sexualities, people's gender identities, our identities in general are often fluid and in flux, and often the way we discover who we are and what we like is through doing and meeting other people. Through doing and meeting other people. We should put that on my gravestone. Doing and meeting other people. The Cheng Thom story. Sorry about that. Anyway, by being attracted to other people, by meeting them, maybe by having sex, if that's what they want to do with you and that's what you want to do with them, that's how we figure out who we are. And so I don't know if it's always possible to be firm in our identities before we start dating other people. Does it mean that one is queer if one is attracted to non-binary trans femmes, or for that matter, non-binary trans masks, or non-binary anyone, queer anyone? What does that mean? Well, I think that the word queer means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I was actually raised in a queer community and culture that taught me that queerness was not about having to be in any particular way, but queerness was about being outside of any box and being able to choose for yourself what queer means. With, of course, a little bit of shade toward people who were living entirely straight, cisgender, heterosexual lives, at least on the outside. That's a bigger debate, I think, about, who can identify as queer or not. But if we notice that our attractions and our gender identities are falling outside of the box of prescribed heteronormativity, then I think it's pretty fair to call oneself queer, to experiment with that label, and then also to discard it if it's not feeling right later on. So those are all kind of the considerations about identity, I might suggest. When it comes to actual treatment of other people, what I would say is almost all of sex is an experiment. It's an experiment in how do I feel today? How do you feel today? What do I want today? What do you want today? And I've said this before in other videos. The dehumanization of being fetishized or experimented on is about being experimented on. It's when we objectify other people and use them as a vehicle for our own gratification or exploration. It's when we see them as like a portal to our own, desire or our own pleasure and nothing else that we are dehumanizing, that we're being hurtful. When we see other people as full human beings and we invite them into the experiment with us, then that's something very different. When we're attending to what they want and what they desire, when we're curious about the impact of our behaviors and our words on them, when we're having the active conversation about what does sex feel like, and particularly what would good sex feel like, then we are moving from the realm of experimenting on to experimenting with. And that is the place that I encourage most people to be. Because we're always going to find out something new about ourselves if we're doing sex in a curious and compassionate and excitement, pleasure-centered way. Even the trans non-binary person of color who is having sex with a cisgender person might be discovering something about themselves. It might be an experiment for them as well. It's about making the right container, about entering into an agreement, about talking to one another, really, about what is going on. And so with that in the center, with that in mind, like I said, I encourage you to go forth and date who you want to date, as long as those people also want to date you, and also know that you're in a process of exploration and are interested in being in a process of exploration with you. All right, lovely viewers, that's it for today. This has been Ask Kai, Quickies. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media at Xtra Magazine.